Originally, when I joined the band, it was a five-piece band. Everybody was part of this corporation called Eagles Limited. We all owned Eagles Limited. I don't know who sent who a legal notice or whatnot, but it just came down that there was no and you're fired. We shared equally but when we got back together, Don and Glenn felt that they should get a much larger share.
Imagine being fired from your job through a cold letter in the mail. No meeting. No explanation. Just a piece of paper telling you that 27 years of your life meant nothing. Now imagine that job was being in one of the most famous rock bands in the world, and you were the guy who wrote their biggest hit. This is exactly what happened to Don Felder, and after staying quiet for decades, he's finally ready to tell the whole truth about what really went on behind the scenes with the Eagles. You think you know the Eagles' story. The harmony, the success, the brotherhood of musicians creating timeless music together. But what if I told you that behind those beautiful melodies and perfect performances was a world of control, betrayal, and power games that would make a corporate boardroom look friendly? Don Felder lived through it all, and now, at 77 years old, he's not holding back anymore. Let's go back to 1974. Don Felder was a young guitar player with incredible talent when he joined the Eagles. The band was already successful, but they needed something more. They needed that rock edge, that extra spark to take them to the next level. Felder brought exactly that. He didn't just play guitar, he transformed their entire sound. He took their country-influenced music and added layers of rock power that made people stop and listen. But Felder's biggest contribution to the Eagles came in 1976 when he was sitting alone in his house in Malibu with a 12-string guitar. He started playing around with a melody, just fooling around really, and what came out of that moment would change everything. That simple demo he recorded at home became the foundation for Hotel California, the song that would define the Eagles forever and make them legends. Think about that guitar solo in Hotel California. You know the one. Everyone knows it. It's been called one of the greatest guitar solos in rock history. That was Don Felder, alone in his room, pouring his heart and soul into his instrument. He didn't know he was creating something that millions of people would sing along to for decades. He was just doing what he loved, playing guitar and making music. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. While Don Felder was creating the music that made the Eagles superstars, he was also walking into a trap he didn't even know existed. Behind the scenes, two members of the band, Don Henley and Glenn Frey, had quietly taken control of everything. They decided what songs would be recorded. They decided how the money would be split. They decided who got to have creative input and who had to stay quiet. Felder found himself in a band where he was doing the work, but not getting the respect. He was writing and performing the hits, but when it came to business decisions, his opinion didn't matter. It was like being the star player on a team, but having the coaches treat you like you were just there to carry the equipment. The Eagles looked like a partnership from the outside, but inside it was more like a company with two bosses and several employees. For years, Felder tried to work within this system. He kept his mouth shut and did his job. He played the guitar solos that made fans scream. He helped create the music that sold millions of albums. But inside, he was getting more and more frustrated. Why should Don Henley and Glenn Frey get a bigger share of the money when everyone in the band was contributing? Why were his ideas for songs constantly shot down or ignored? These seemed like fair questions, but asking them made him an enemy. The other members of the Eagles started calling Felder difficult to work with. But was he really difficult, or was he just asking for fairness? When you're putting your heart into creating music that makes other people rich and famous, shouldn't you have a say in how things are done? Felder thought so, but his bandmates saw his questions as threats to their control. The tension got so bad that the Eagles actually broke up for a while in the 1980s, but when they got back together in 1994 for what they called the Hell Freezes Over tour, nothing had changed. If anything, things got worse. Felder was still being shut out of important decisions while being expected to perform like everything was fine. Imagine going to work every day knowing that your bosses don't respect you, but you have to smile and pretend everything is perfect because millions of people are watching. The breaking point came in 2001. After 27 years with the band, after helping create some of the most beloved songs in rock history, after touring the world and making the Eagles one of the biggest bands on the planet, Don Felder was fired. And how did they tell him? Not with a face-to-face meeting, not even with a phone call. They sent him a legal notice in the mail. Just a cold, formal letter telling him he was out. Can you imagine opening that letter? After nearly 3 decades of giving your life to a band, of creating music that will live forever, of being part of something that brought joy to millions of people, you find out you're fired through the mail. It's hard to think of a more heartless way to end such a long relationship. But Felder wasn't going to just walk away quietly. He knew he had been treated unfairly, and he decided to fight back. He filed a lawsuit against Don Henley and Glenn Frey, claiming they had broken their contract with him and wrongfully kicked him out of the band. He lawsuit also claimed that the profits from the Eagles' success had been unfairly distributed, with Henley and Frey keeping too much for themselves. The lawsuit became big news. Suddenly, fans were learning that their favorite band wasn't the happy family they thought it was. The court case revealed a side of the Eagles that was ugly and full of conflict. While the case was going on, Felder was painted as a troublemaker who was just trying to get money. But from his perspective, he was just trying to get the recognition and respect he deserved for the work he had done. The legal battle went on for years, finally ending in 2007 when both sides agreed to a settlement. The amount of money involved was never made public, but for Felder, it was never really about the money anyway. What he wanted was for people to understand that he had been an important part of the Eagles' success, not just some hired guitar player who could be thrown away when he became inconvenient. After the lawsuit was over, Felder could have just disappeared. He could have taken whatever money he got from the settlement and retired quietly. But instead, he did something that shocked everyone. In 2008, he wrote a book called Heaven and Hell, My Life in the Eagles 1974-2001. And in that book, he told his side of the story in detail. The book was like a bomb going off in the music world. Felder didn't hold back. He wrote about how Don Henley and Glenn Frey had controlled every aspect of the band. He talked about meetings where his opinions were dismissed and ignored. He described what it felt like to be treated like an employee rather than a partner, even though his guitar playing was essential to the Eagles' sound. What made the book so powerful was that Felder didn't try to make himself look perfect. He admitted that he had a temper. He acknowledged that he sometimes reacted badly to situations. He was honest about his own flaws and mistakes. But he also made it clear that the way he was treated was wrong, and he wasn't going to pretend otherwise anymore. The reaction to the book was immediate and intense. Don Henley and his lawyers accused Felder of breaking confidentiality agreements by revealing inside information about the band. They tried to stop the book from being published in certain formats and demanded money for damages. The battle wasn't just about music anymore. It was about who had the right to tell the true story of what happened. Some fans thought Felder was just being bitter and trying to get attention by digging up old problems. But many others felt like they were finally learning the truth about a band they had loved for years. The book showed that even in the music business, where everything is supposed to be about art and creativity, money and power can corrupt relationships and destroy friendships. Felder has said in interviews that he actually held back in the book. He claims he could have revealed much more damaging information about his former bandmates, but he chose not to. He didn't want to completely destroy anyone's reputation. He just wanted to tell his side of the story and set the record straight about his contributions to the Eagles. More than 15 years have people passed since the book came out, and Felder has never backed down from anything he wrote. He stands by every word. In recent interviews, he's made it clear that everything in the book was true as he experienced it. He's not trying to rewrite history. He's just trying to make sure his version of events is part of the historical record. The relationship between Felder and his former bandmates never recovered. When Glenn Frey died in 2016, Felder attended the memorial service and spoke respectfully about his former bandmate. But he also made it clear that they had never resolved their differences. As for Don Henley, the two men maintain a polite distance when they occasionally run into each other at music industry events. There's no hatred, but there's no friendship either. What's remarkable about Don Felder's story is what happened after he left the Eagles. Instead of fading away or becoming bitter, he rebuilt his career on his own terms. In 2012, he released a solo album called Road to Forever. It wasn't a huge commercial success, but it was something much more important to Felder. It was proof that he could still write songs, still play guitar, and still create music without anyone controlling him. The album was deeply personal, with songs about loss, betrayal, and learning to move forward after being hurt. It wasn't just music. It was therapy. It was Felder working through decades of frustration and anger by doing what he had always done best, putting his emotions into his guitar and letting the music speak for him. In 2019, Felder released another album called American Rock and Roll. This time, he worked with some of the biggest names in rock music, including Slash, Mick Fleetwood, and Sammy Hagar. The fact that these legendary musicians were willing to work with him showed that his peers in the industry respected his talent, even if his former bandmates didn't. Since leaving the Eagles, Felder has continued to tour regularly. He doesn't play in huge stadiums anymore, but he still draws crowds to theaters and festivals across the country. And yes, he still plays Hotel California at every show. It's his song after all, and he's proud of it. He plays it exactly the way he recorded it originally because he knows that's what the audience wants to hear. In 2025, at the age of 77, Felder released an album called The Vault, 50 Years of Music. This wasn't just a collection of old songs. It was a carefully curated selection of unreleased material, demos, and new recordings that showed the full range of his musical abilities. The album featured guest appearances by respected musicians who were eager to work with him, proving that his reputation in the music world remains strong. But Felder's life isn't just about making music anymore. He's also dedicated time to teaching and helping young musicians. He gives guitar workshops and supports music education programs. He understands that music should be about bringing people together, not driving them apart. His advice to young artists goes beyond technical skills. He teaches them about maintaining their identity and standing up for themselves when working with others. Unfortunately, Felder's age is starting to catch up with him. In February 2025, he had a health scare during a performance on a cruise ship. He was playing Tequila Sunrise when he suddenly became ill and had to be helped off the stage. The incident was later attributed to severe dehydration, and Felder recovered quickly. But it was a reminder that at 77, he can't perform with the same intensity he once could. Despite this setback, Felder hasn't slowed down much. He's still writing music, still recording, and still performing when his health allows. He's not trying to recapture his youth or relive his glory days with the Eagles. He's simply continuing to do what he's always done, make music that comes from his heart. What's most impressive about Don Felder today is his attitude toward the past. He's not angry anymore. He's not bitter. He's found a way to make peace with what happened without forgetting or forgiving the way he was treated. He's learned to focus on the present and the future, rather than dwelling on old wounds. In recent interviews, Felder has said that being kicked out of the Eagles was actually a blessing in disguise. It forced him to discover who he was as an individual artist rather than just a member of a group. He learned the difference between cooperation and blind obedience. He found out that he could survive and thrive on his own. Felder has also become more philosophical about forgiveness. He's made it clear that he doesn't forgive his former bandmates to make them feel better. He forgives them to free himself from carrying around anger and resentment. Forgiveness, he says, is about making a choice to stop letting negative emotions control your life. This mature perspective has made Felder a sought-after guest on music documentaries and podcasts. When he talks about his experiences now, he doesn't sound like someone seeking revenge or trying to settle old scores. He sounds like someone who has learned important life lessons and wants to share them with others. Felder is also careful about what he says in public. He could probably make headlines by revealing more details about his conflicts with the Eagles, but he chooses not to. He's selective about when and where he discusses his past. He understands that every time he speaks about the Eagles, people are listening, and he doesn't want to turn his life into a never-ending story of conflict. The guitar solo on Hotel California remains Don Felder's most famous contribution to music, and he's proud of it. When people hear that solo, they're hearing pure emotion translated into music by a master guitarist. Felder created it alone in his home studio, with no producer telling him what to play, and no committee making decisions about how it should sound. It was just him and his guitar, creating something beautiful. Today, when Felder plays Hotel California in concert, he plays it almost exactly as he did on the original recording. He doesn't try to change it or improve it because he knows it's already perfect. He treats the song with respect, both for the work he put into it and for the millions of fans who love it. The fact that other legendary guitarists like Slash and Joe Satriani are willing to work with Felder says everything about how he's viewed by his peers. They don't care about the drama or the lawsuits or the bitter feelings. They care about talent and artistry, and they recognize that Felder has both. Felder doesn't need the Eagles anymore. He's proven that he can create meaningful music on his own. He's shown that he can maintain a career and earn the respect of his colleagues without being part of a famous band. Most importantly, he's demonstrated that it's possible to survive betrayal and rejection without losing your dignity or your passion for what you do. At 77, Don Felder is still standing. He's still playing guitar. He's still writing songs. He's still teaching young musicians. And he's still telling his story. Not to hurt anyone or to seek revenge, but to make sure that the truth about his contributions to rock history is remembered. His message to young artists is simple but powerful. Don't let anyone else control your creative voice. Stand up for yourself when you're being treated unfairly. Remember that talent and hard work deserve respect, regardless of politics or power games. And never let anyone convince you that your contributions don't matter. Don Felder's story is ultimately one of survival and redemption. He was knocked down hard, but he got back up. He was silenced for years, but he found his voice again. He was written out of the official story, but he wrote his own version. And in doing so, he created a legacy that goes beyond any single band or any single song. The dark side of the Eagles that Don Felder has revealed isn't just about one band's internal problems. It's a cautionary tale about what can happen when art meets business, when creativity is controlled by corporate thinking, when talented people are treated as disposable assets rather than human beings with feelings and contributions that matter. But Felder's story is also inspiring because it shows that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to tell your truth, and to rebuild your life on your own terms. At 77, he's not just surviving, he's thriving. He's not just making music, he's making a statement that talent, integrity, and perseverance can overcome even the most difficult circumstances. Don Felder may have been excluded from the Eagles' official history, but he's written his own history. And that history shows a man who refused to be silenced, who chose truth over comfort, and who proved that sometimes the most beautiful music comes not from harmony, but from the courage to play your own song, even when the rest of the band has walked away. If this story has opened your eyes to a side of rock history you never knew existed, please hit that like button. Share this video with other music lovers who deserve to know the full story behind the songs they love. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because we're committed to bringing you the untold stories and hidden truths behind the music that has shaped our lives. There's always more to the story than what you see on the surface, and we're here to help you discover it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.